Hey Kathy, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I thought we would discuss today. We hear people talk about what is our real nature. Uh, with that, they talk about God, and they talk about being, being, and particularly with the course, we're at home in God, dreaming of exile. So we have this juxtaposition between these two things. And we want to see basically how this plays out in our own life, because if we don't understand some of these highfalutin terms, our real nature is totally spiritual and perfect, and God's perfect, and all of this stuff. But here I am in space and time, and
Yeah,
and um, it
there's
seems
bills
a
to
little
pay.
it seems a
Yeah.
little bit remote. So the thing is that one of the promises of the course, it promises to be exceedingly practical.
Mhm.
And so I think if we could just talk about this, it seems like you have this highfalutin metaphysics. There's perfection, there's God, there's perfect, and your nature's perfect. And then here we are living in this world. And I want to see if we can try and relate that highfalutin metaphysics, which sounds highfalutin,
Yeah.
with our everyday experience. All right?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So so first of all, if we look at our experience, we find that we really genuinely believe that our life and being is this psychophysical entity we are, that we're a thing in the world, a material thing, and a psychological thing. And we're an object amongst other objects. And we come alive as an object. You know what I mean? I was born, and then I'm going to exist in space, and I'm going to persist through time until I cark it, until I die. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, and I might wish I might wish for something spiritual, but the fact of the matter is, I'm very heavily enclosed in the idea that I am a psychophysical entity, that this is my life and being. So my life and being is my life is my experiences. That
Yeah.
is such uh, strong, and it's something that comes up for us again and again, that we because we wouldn't be afraid of death otherwise. You know what I mean? We can say, oh yes, I'm spiritual and I'm a spiritual being, but yeah. No.
Yeah.
So we have to be honest about this. Is that we there's a default position where we're materialistic. In other words, we believe material existence is the whole story,
Hmm.
and we're a material object. We exist in space, and we persist through time, and we're going to die. And this is our life and being.
Yeah.
So this is the starting point of the course, because this is what we believe. This is where we find ourselves. This is our starting point. And from what I can understand, the course speaks of dreaming of exile. So we're at home in God, but we're dreaming of exile. So can you just talk a little bit about this dreaming of exile business?
Yes, I'd like to back up a little bit first to talk about how the Course describes the world and the ego, which is a description of what we've made of ourselves. So when you say, yes, all we know is our physical experience, we have no reason to look beyond our senses for the
Mm-hmm.
truth, because it seems it's an enclosed system, it's a prison. We don't
Mm-hmm.
try to not be a body here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we're taught what we are. And the Course describes in great detail what it means to be a body in a world, and it is not pretty. And all of
Mm-hmm.
those descriptions are basically what we made of ourselves. So we are things that wander idly in and out of places the mind contrives. Um,
Is that a quote?
Stumbling
Is that a
blindly,
quote? Is that a quote? Is it?
it is.
Yeah.
This is for That's what the body does. It wanders idly in and out of places the mind contrives, and that's what we call our lives. We
Mm-hmm.
always are acting with very little information, so we're kind of stumbling blindly in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Describes us as things of madness and despair. So you could say, on the one hand, the course is describing the water we're drowning in, but then
Right.
it's like no water.
Right.
um, so what we think we're living in, being a body in a world, it calls into question first by describing what that means, what it must mean, including that it would mean God is insane, and is introducing us to the idea that we are something else. And that something else is the dreamer of the dream. What we are is the dreamer of the dream and not the dream itself. So you said we're at home in God, dreaming of exile. And that is the truth in us. So the Course has to take us through what we made to look at that, raise it to question, and then practice asking for help.
Right. So, and they say that this condition of me, desperately seeking to try and find happiness in a world that's constantly changing, and me seeking a permanent solution to my life in a changing world is rather futile.
Yes.
But they also say that in this condition we are mindless, less of a mind. Now I know sometimes what happens is I have those moments where you suddenly become mindful. In other words, you become aware. Actually become aware of, like when I was studying Vedanta in India, they made a big deal of this. The fact that sure, you've got what the senses are showing you, you've got your thoughts and you've got your feelings, and you've got sensations and you've got actions, but there's a possibility of being aware of those going away.
Yeah.
Going away. So, and in the Course, they have the expression that there's a juxtaposition that when I'm lost in the dream, I'm just mindlessly, it's just unfolding, and I'm being carried. I'm being what the Course is. I'm being dreamed. But then
Yeah.
there's suddenly these moments where you're dragged out. You're dragged out of the dream, and you become mindful of what's going on. Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, the true dynamic of what is responsible for our experience can come to mind. We can find it when we're studying the Course, and we kind of see that there's nothing valuable here and what I made of myself. And when you see the mind, when it sees no value, will automatically choose something else. And I think that that can be very spontaneous. It could be preceded by practicing the Course, by turning to Jesus and asking for help and looking. But the experience you're talking about, where you could call it being above the battleground, seeing things differently,
Mhm.
seeing with vision, seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. I think those experiences are so important because in an instant you can see what separates you from um, salvation is not time, but um, uh, it's a space where we wrote the truth. And just for an instant, if we stop deciding what the truth is, if we do nothing to make ourselves afraid, then the truth will rush in and show us something else.
Yeah, that's interesting because the Course has this that inbuilt in me is a memory of God's love,
Yeah.
in a memory of God's love, and we know that when the Course talks about suspending judgment, we know that, for example, the Buddhists have this notion as well that we take the Course. We don't have to believe the Course, but what the Buddhists say is they talk about provisional acceptance. We go, okay, we're going to provisionally acceptance pending discovery.
Yeah.
We're going to suspend our judgment pending discovery. And so what happens is that, for example, when you hear that statement, we're at home in God, dreaming of exile. When I first heard that statement, it really hit me. It's something in me. It's like an inner recognition, right? Um, and the thing is that we suddenly see that we've been caught up, and one of the best examples of this is one of the first principles in our practice is that we start with a very convincing experience that things external to me are pissing me off, that
Yeah.
are upsetting me, that are causing me to be the way I am. And then we have this statement in the Course, and it goes, uh, uh, I am never upset for the reason I think. So there's an interruption. So here I am. my spouse says something I don't like, or some condition happens, something happens I don't like, and I suddenly find myself upset. And then in the middle of it, there's this possibility of this mindfulness opening up as a memory of, hey, hang on a minute, what does the course say? And then suddenly it go, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And what this does is it interrupts the dreaming. So, like what you say, I now become mindful. I'm now mindful. I'm actually aware of the fact that I am thinking that the external thing is upset, and there's something in me that's willing to challenge that because of the teaching of the course.
Yes, and that, I mean, you just really nailed what is the experience. First, there's almost always a provocation that seems very upsetting. I
Yeah.
mean, that is the thing that makes us stop. And when you can call to mind the course to kind of cancel out that knee-jerk reaction about what the cause is of the pain, then you free yourself to choose again, choose a different teacher and see it differently. And it's so beautiful, the lesson, I'm never upset for the reason I think. I think one of what I love about the course and what has drew me to it is the uncompromising nature of it. It isn't, sometimes something outside of me's to blame. I'm never upset for the reason I think. It's so complete and perfect to pull you away from that fixed position where I'm going to constantly point at the world and feel helpless and not be able to solve any problems because another one will come up. So it's that cycle that you get into that it breaks.
Would you
So
say that? Would you say that that helplessness really is being mindless? There's no alternatives. There's just being
yeah,
mindlessness, and it just goes on and on.
yes, and also another really I think important part of that is that mindlessness is purposive. So everything that we think is happening to us is actually very purposive. We want to stay asleep and dreaming. So if we kind of go back through the metaphysical chart and we can see this world is an outward picture of an inward condition. It is the idea of separation, casting a shadow on the wall of the mind, and we're identifying with a shadow. And so, as long as I believe I'm that shadow, I'm going to act out its little script and believe that, I am a victim of the world that I think I see and I have no power. But the purpose of it is to stay asleep and dreaming because something in me is still holding on to, still seeing value in this self I made. No matter how unhappy I become, no matter how much I hate the self I made, um, the purpose of blaming things outside of me is to keep my dream alive.
Right. So I
It-
have in order to have my own self-existence separate and apart from God, because the course understands that ultimately the just God is ultimately metaphysically God is. And we're also told that it's expressed that we are a creation of that God, so that the life and light that God is the life and light that we are. That at the highest level, there's no place where God ends and I begin, right?
Right, right.
So that's the so our real nature, what we as God made us, is perfect, right?
Yeah,
But we that metaphysical principle is so we can understand this experience here. It's not to be pursued as a goal, is it? That I'm going to become this disembodied perfect being. Can you just talk about that? Because
yeah.
there
I
seems to be
didn't
a difference
really.
between the metaphysical principle that we use to understand our present experience
Yeah.
and the alternative of becoming this a believer in some idealized version of ourselves that's remote from human experience.
Right, right. Once we find ourselves experiencing ourselves as a figure in a dream, a mindless figure in a dream, um, we the goal of the course, I should say, is to uh, teach us. How should I say this? I want to kind of speak to what you said. Yeah, we can't really just awaken it would be too terrifying. So the ultimate goal of the course is to be a reflection of the truth. There, it was kind of more simple than I was going to make it, is to reflect the thought system of the Holy Spirit. Um, and God will take the final step. So we don't have to find our way home or, basically we're taught to see things differently through the eyes of Jesus and look on what we made, understand that it's not the truth and cannot be the truth, and see things differently by withdrawing our projections and our judgments. By and the way we do withdraw our judgments is by looking on them, bringing them into question, and seeing that it can't be true.
Okay, so what we do is we got a metaphysical principle that in terms of our real nature, it's perfect, that nothing needs to be improved already, it's already existing here. However, we can't do a jump to that. However, we can understand here, we can come to awaken to what they talk about when we remove the hindrance to the awareness of love's presence. So we can become aware of love's presence
Mhm.
here, right now, as we are. We can become aware of love's presence. And the reason for that is that because our real nature is what the Course calls Christ, when I am being myself, resting in love's presence here, that will get rid of the guilt, because I'm being a reflection of what I really am.
Right. It's a reflection of the thought that nothing happened. The separation didn't happen. Not one note in heaven's song was missed. And you fully reflect that um, through the Holy Spirit. And I think that, another piece of that is it has nothing to do with form. It's not what we say or do that changes. Being a reflection in the world is an experience. And I think that when we do sometimes think we know what it's going to look like in the world, we know what
Mhm.
kindness looks like, we know what compassion looks like, I think we get tripped up because it just shows our investment is still in what seems to be happening in the shadow, instead of the experience. So I think
Right.
that's an important piece, is that we seek only that experience.
Right. So the usefulness of the Course's metaphysical principle is that we're already perfect in terms of our nature. If I do any kind of striving to reach that goodness, as
Mm.
opposed to awakening to that goodness,
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong I'm on the wrong I'm in the wrong place. It's the stick figure in the dream trying to get out of the dream. The
Yes.
Hindus have a saying that it's a little bit like a thief dressing himself up as a policeman in order to catch himself. It does,
That's great. I like that a lot.
it does,
It's like being in the battleground and deciding I'm going to be the good part of this battleground, you
right.
know.
So what we're talking about here is that this being at home in God, dreaming of exile, we can have a reflection of that at home in God, which I understand that there is a place in us that we can awaken to here in space and time, where
Mhm.
we're at home with ourselves because we're at home in God. It's not the absolute truth of us, but it's a reflection of this truth. And
Yeah.
when I'm at home, and I'm at home with myself because I'm at home in God, because to be myself is to be my real self is to be at home in God, right? So it's not something away from me. It's something that's already here. It's just that I'm blind to it. And when I'm resting in being at home in God, first of all, I've got no grievances dominating coming from the past, or no
Yeah.
regrets. I've got no future catastrophic expectations of destruction. But
Yeah.
what's really important is the self hatred that drives me to project.
Hmm.
I'm momentarily, when I'm actually appreciating right here, right now, as I am, this appreciation of myself being at home in God, I'm released from guilt, which is the whole purpose of the course. And so, therefore, because I'm not stuck in the past, stuck in the future, and stuck in self hatred in the present, I'm at peace. I've made my peace with my brother, with myself, and with the world as it is, and my past history, and everything else. Is that what we're talking about here? What does the
Yes,
course? What does the
true.
course call? What does this course call this condition where we're just like this?
That would be, there's a couple of things. In the
Hmm.
manual for teachers in the development of trust, he talks about the stages of development. The sixth stage is the stage you're describing, where heaven is fully reflected. And he says, who would go anywhere if heaven's here and now? It's fully reflected and you're experiencing that reflection. So I want to back up and talk about stage five, just before
Hmm.
level six or level five, where he says, what you need to do is ask yourself all the time, what do I really want? And so that is, he says stage five can last a very long time because we may want to stop protecting our ego, stop judging, let go of our grievances, see things differently. But we have kind of overlearned the lesson that we need to do this. There's that terror within us. And so we're supposed to ask ourselves, what do I really want? And when I say I want to stop protecting my ego, but I keep protecting my ego, forgive myself for it. So, and then that's part of the whole path is to, keep rejecting, um, keep rejecting the simple lessons until we really come with empty hands and say, you know,
Yeah, I could never understand. In India, they used to take us back in a meditation, just basically back to just simply being. And the thing was that, and I remember at the time thinking, as this I've never been hurt. I was quite amazed. I thought, as this I've never been hurt. But then for some reason I'd fall away from it, and the explanation was given like it was distraction or whatever. What I like about the course is like what you brought up last week. Why I fall away from it is I'm afraid of it.
yeah,
So that the fact of the matter is I'm not a innocent victim of the absence of God.
yeah,
I because there's one part of me that wants to preserve a sense of identity separate and apart from God, so I can have my own life and being in it, and I can be me, right?
yeah.
Because this is something I want and value,
Hmm.
because I love being me. I love being me.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, unless there's a shift in what I love,
Hmm.
because this is the dynamic of the human being. Our heart is what moves us every day.
Yeah.
When I move towards God, which is sometimes what happens, I have a very strong interest, an inclination just simply to rest in the presence of God. At
Hmm.
other times, it's completely gone. You know what I mean? And I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
We want to
interested in
have
something
love rather
else.
than be it.
Sorry, hey, there you go.
We want to have love rather than be it. Like it's kind of like we're
Right.
grasping. I want to grasp for the things I want rather than be what I want. So I can have something that's all mine. And I'm a child of specialness. We're all children of specialness.
Yes.
And terrified out of our minds. So when you think about what the course teaches, it literally teaches we're mindless because we're terrified out of our minds. That terror is a defense against the truth. And so
Right.
he references it many times in the course. You will have to go through seeming terror. The annihilation of what we identify with produces the seeming terror. And so we
Right.
have to be
And so,
really
and we're
gentle with ourselves.
yeah, and we're talking about the process of forgiveness is not away from our human experience of being here, because
Right.
so we're not the course is that we're not trying to get rid of individuality. We're actually trying to this is going to have to is that we're being transformed as an individual in the world from
Mhm.
uh, being obsessed with trying to find happiness where it's not, to being an
Yeah.
individual who is peaceful and reflecting God's love in on earth here.
Yeah. And I think that learning all roads lead to the same place and really holding that in mind loosens our investment in what happens. It does kind of take the steam out of grasping at the world for things.
Right, because I notice, for example, if I'm upset and I suddenly, if my understanding tells me that the reason for my upset is that I'm experiencing myself and believing that I'm separate and apart from God,
Yeah.
that enables me to go, oh, I better go back to God, and then I go, and then I can rest, and I
Yeah.
find myself lifted out of the nonsense. Sometimes I have to do a bit more of a process of that, but the thing we're talking about is that The importance of the idea that we are Christ is that right here, right now, as we are, there's a possibility of finding rest and peace, no matter what's happening in front of us.
Yes.
And we're learning about that. And that proves to us the very fact that we, through the right understanding and the right way of seeing our life, that we can shift from being disturbed, upset, hateful, empty, frustrated, to having a clear mind and a non-disturbed heart. That's the whole game, isn't it?
Yes, salvation is always here and now. When we try to put it in the future, that is a purposive attempt to maintain the dream. And one thing Ken would say is when we watch ourselves, we can see upset usually comes on the heels of a peaceful moment. And
Mm.
so, it's almost like the ego has to rush in and make sure we're
Yeah,
upset,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And he's
yeah,
like, try to back up and see just what came before that. So you can
yeah.
see you made a choice to get upset.
Yeah, one of the course lessons is that I rest in God, and I think it's a very important because this is the reflection of being Christ. In other words, the perfect oneness that already exists between myself and the Father is already here. That
Yes,
perfect oneness I don't have to strive for because it's already here. I'm
yes,
busy actively trying to get away from that. When that activity of trying to get away from that ceases to exist,
yes.
it's like you take away the darkness, and then you're just left with the light.
Right, right. Nothing has to change but our minds.
Right, and I think that's the important part. So that once what's interesting about the course is it gives us an entirely new way of looking at our experience, because
Yeah,
and it brings about it doesn't bring about a transformation of experience by using experience, but
hmm,
by understanding the experience and seeing it in the right light. We can be liberated from these normal problems that we have as a human being: our unhappiness, our loneliness, our conflict with others, our fears about the future, our regrets about the past. All of these things are very important issues that the course has a very practical approach to, and which is what when we're doing these conversations here, we want to try and expose to people the
yeah,
practicality of the course, so it doesn't become some metaphysical la la land that's
right,
away
right.
from my experience, because
Yeah,
the experience of being peaceful, being at home in God or resting in God, is a tangible fact.
yeah.
It is, and to be appreciated. It is not some future ideal that one day I'm going to get there.
Right, right. And I think that one thing that is a very practical thing you can do all the time is say, if you find yourself upset, say, I must have been listening to my ego. The ego's tale of doom and gloom and hopelessness. If
Hmm.
I'm feeling those things, I listen to my ego. And so that recognition reminds you there's another teacher, there's something else inside of me. It's not outside of me, there's something else inside of me that I can turn to. And so I think that's an important piece to
So
stop
we're
and
so we're looking at that in the world of time and space. Here I am as an individual.
mhm,
Uh, there's a recognition that starts the process of the forgiveness. We recognize we're dreaming of exile.
mhm,
The end of the process is a feeling of being at home in God and being at home with ourselves because we're at home in God, which releases us from the human problems. And this is what we're working with. We're working with our very tangible lived experience of life.
yes, yeah,
I really love that. I loved Kierkegaard when he was a philosopher, and he said that the truth is never away from the situation of the knower. And I thought it was very good because it means that we need to stick with our concrete lives as they are lived, because that's where we're experiencing our problem,
right,
and that through spiritual understanding. So the course gives us new eyes to be able to see our life differently, to shift us out of the dream of exile, which is the problem, which is the belief that we're separate and apart from God,
yeah,
to an appreciation of God's presence because we're resting in the presence of God, and that appreciation is validated by a pervasive peace. Is that right?
yes. Yes, and I think the ego is so insidious that over time we can learn how much it wants to block us into this idea um, that you'll never be happy, that there's only despair and disappointment and nothingness, oblivion. And there are times when you're too afraid to turn to Jesus to see things differently, or it seems that the antagonist um, is some kind of grotesque thing that makes it seem more difficult to forgive and see
Hmm.
differently. And in those times, I think it's important to join with something. So without condemning yourself, like if you say, join with a friend, join with your pet, join with a book, that can be a starting point to see things differently. You can't, you have to be kind to yourself and offer yourself what you believe will help you without condemning yourself, because forgiveness um, is the name of the game. And
Right.
so
And so
give yourself, forgive yourself.
the end result is we all of us have we're holding things against other people, we're holding things against ourselves, we're holding things against the world because of all
Mhm.
of the upset that it's having. When we're released from that holding, which is forgiveness,
Yeah,
we can then become aware of love's presence and rest in it. Is that right?
yeah, perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see each other next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.